Hi, and welcome to Missed It by How Much. This is the channel that tests sports hypotheses by using computer game engines. We're replaying the 1990 baseball season as the Los Angeles Dodgers manager. We are attempting to win the Western Division without Alfredo Griffin as our regular shortstop. We've hit the midpoint. The Dodgers have completed 81 games. There you see their record. We're 2 games over the Jets. We're going to take this time to look over the whole league, give you a understanding of where the other teams are at, and look forward to the All-Star break. So let's start with the Boston Red Sox. This will be an exercise of just looking at the statistics, making some comments for reference, trying to remember where they've come from and where we think they're headed. For the Red Sox, they're still led by Ellis Burks. There you see his stats. He's dropped off from his torrid start in the season, but still playing above his 1990 level, regular season level. There you see his fielding numbers. Someone that we've talked about before on the channel is Luis Rivera. There you see his numbers. He hit better in June. And there you see his fielding numbers. One person that's not played as well lately is Wade Boggs. He hit 229 in June and only 236 in May. So he's currently under 300. We'll see if that average comes back in the second half of the season. Some good pitching performances by the Red Sox are led by someone that you should know, Roger Clemens. There's his numbers. Not quite up to the real season, but very close. And Tom Bolton, who's pitching above his real season averages, and he should get more starts unless he gets injured than he did in the real 1990 season. Just behind Boston are the Toronto Blue Jays. This team has gone back and forth with Boston throughout the first half. They've both played very well. For Toronto, their infield, especially the left side of their infield, has been a good catalyst for their victories in the first half of the season. Tony Fernandez and Kelly Gruber have done an outstanding job. There you see their numbers, both over 800. Fred McGriff also in the infield. Let's take a look at Fred real quick. There you see those numbers, fielding wise. Kelly Gruber. And Tony Fernandez. Playing good defense as well as hitting offensively. There you see some of the other guys. George Bell is someone who is playing about where he was in the regular season, but not getting as many plate appearances. Apparently, the computer likes to play Glenn Allen Hill every once in a while in left field, even though he's not as good offensively. You know, my strategy involves offense and rarely care about fielding. But the computer is not the same. One person who had a torrid start to the season was John Olerud. He's calmed down a little bit now, but still playing well. Pitching-wise for Toronto, these ERAs don't seem as good as they could be. Tom Hinkie, I would expect a much better ERA. There you see it's more than doubled what he did in the real regular season. So that's kind of a surprise. A 10 ERA in June. Not very good. Next up, Baltimore Orioles. And when you talk about the Baltimore Orioles, you always start with Cal Ripken Jr., who's, a mainstay of all-star teams. Broke into the league in '83, won a Rookie of the Year and a championship. Well, I believe he did play in '82 as well, but I believe he was the Rookie of the Year in '83. And I mean, I could be wrong, but he probably played in every All-Star game right around that time for the rest of his career. We'll start with him. Cal, a little below his numbers, but still not up to snuff for an All-Star to me. Although defensively, really good. Mickey Tettleton, also very good behind the plate. Although as a old man, I'd like to see an average better than that. I know the OPS is the most important thing. There you see the rest of the players. I don't see any real bad. I see a couple injuries there. But their best player to me is Ben McDonald. There you see his numbers, really good. And I believe we'll see him on the All-Star team for sure. Also, Greg Olson, a first-rate closer with a whip below 1 and an ERA below half of a run. They've been surpassed, or they have surpassed the Cleveland Indians, who are still not out of it, but have drifted to 5 games behind Boston. They're the second best hitting team in the league. Their pitching staff has had a tough time. Doug Jones with 14 saves, but an ERA over 4 is not good enough. To me, Candy Maldonado leads them in OPS. Jerry Brown, once dubbed the governor, playing above his head and hitting. There you see the fielding stats. Chris James had played like an all-star most of the first half, has hit a rough patch in the past month and days. Definitely a consideration. I think beyond Alex Cole, you're going to see below average OPSs the rest of the way for that team. It's funny to me how sometimes it seems as though all-star teams in the 90s players were chosen based on reputation or certain statistics that we don't see as important now, 3 decades later, such as pitchers based on wins. that doesn't occur anymore. Hitters' batting averages are not as important. It's more of the OPS. One guy who should be on an all-star team regardless of his batting average is Cecil Fielder. Another good year out of him, at least half a year. And projects to get, well, he's a little over in games. Some teams were above 81. He has 27 home runs, which would project to 54. We'll see. He's still going to be close if he doesn't get injured. There you see his hitting. And surprising to me, his fielding is really good. I wouldn't have guessed that, but I would be wrong. Also, Travis Fryman playing above his real numbers. And there you see the fielding. Also, Tony Phillips. Very good player. Very useful career. Playing all over the diamond. There you see. Everything but first base in the infield and all the outfield positions. Even though he doesn't play the best defense, very valuable member of a team. Pitching wise, there you see the numbers. Morris probably above average there. Rough to see much else. Mike Henneman, good reliever with 10 saves, ERA 2.49. The last two teams have had it rough thus far, and if are not already drifting out of contention, they're pretty close to it. Milwaukee and the New York Yankees. They've had some issues throughout the season. We'll take a look at that. There you see the staff, and these ERAs for starting pitchers are just ridiculously bad. Ron Robinson's isn't, but he's only started 13 games. Kind of expected more out of Dan Plesac, but haven't received it yet. And there you see the hitting. Again, the average is great for Gary Sheffield, but a little more production. That might not be his fault. There might not be people on base to drive in. And the Yankees, and whenever you talk about the Yankees, at least for me, you talk about Don Mattingly, who the computer, for whatever reason, has decided not to play very much. Kevin Moss has, after a really slow start, come on and played better. He's kind of proven the fact that he should be the starter against right-handers at first base. Take a look at those numbers. He's currently inactive, I believe. There he is. Performing at a very nice clip, at least against right-handers. And there you see the fielding numbers. And compare that to Mr. Mattingly. And you see why the computer would choose to put the normal first baseman for the Yankees on the bench. I'd like to highlight Jesse Barfield, playing great. There you see the numbers, hitting from both sides, or both pitchers, And there you see the play in the outfield, nice as well. Hard to do when you're on a team that's 17 games out at the break, but he's doing it. To the west, Oakland has turned it on. They've got their guys back from injury, and they are the cream of the AL West. It took a little bit longer than what was expected, but they now lead. They have the outfield that all of baseball wishes they had. And that, I think, is what guides them to that lead. Rickey Henderson in left field just showing off, just like his regular season. He was the real MVP of 1990 in the American League, and he should be in this replay simulation as well. He's been outstanding. Mark McGwire has not been injured this season, and he's played even better than expected. Just completely crushing lefties. And there you see his fielding stats. Dave Henderson has come back from an injury to really show off, and maybe perhaps his best season, and is really outperforming his real life stats. And there you see his play in the field. And you can't forget Jose Canseco, also outperforming back from injury. Playing 57 games is around my point to get on the All-Star team, but I think he just makes it. There you see his stats and how he plays in the outfield. Those guys, those four should be a shoo-in for the All-Star team. Pitching-wise, I know the real 1990 team had Bob Welch start for the All-Star team. I don't think that's going to happen. In fact, I don't think any of these starters will make the All-Star team. My judgment on that involves ERA and WHIP. And we'll see, but Dave Stewart would probably be the only one that would make it. In terms of relief, they have... most teams would love one of these pitchers at the bottom. Eckersley, Honeycutt, and Nelson. I believe Nelson is probably the most valuable, although it is close with Eckersley. But that's how they win games, not up here with the starting pitchers. At least that's the way I see it. With that offense, though, you can afford to make a lot of mistakes pitching-wise and still win the game. Just barely behind Oakland are the Minnesota Twins, a team that ended up in last place in the real season and won the 1991 World Series, going last to first, just like the Atlanta Braves. In real life, they're trying to do it a year early. They definitely probably... I would expect them to not end up in last place by the end of the season. They're led, pitching-wise, by Kevin Cappany, who personally I think should be the all-star starter for the American League. Look at those numbers. A 2.10 ERA versus a 4.07. And look at his whip, 0.887. Just excellent starting pitching. He's done that the whole season. Also in the bullpen, they have Rick Aguilera, who's been close to unhittable. The ERA is 0.28, and the whip is 0.673. In 31 appearances, he has 15 saves. Just remarkable. There you see the hitters. Surprisingly to me, Brian Harper has the highest OPS and I would say is probably on the All-Star team as a catcher. What I'm looking for there is OPS. I'm looking for games played. He's again right on the edge, 52. He's been injured, but as in middle infielders and catching, you don't have to play as well as the other guys to make the team. There you see his defensive stats. Hrbek definitely garners some notice. There you see his numbers. I don't know if it's going to be good enough to make the team based on the rest of the players. Shane Mack, who we talked about previously after month 1, has slowed down quite a bit. There's his numbers. You can't talk about a team like this and at the Twins in the 90s without talking about Kirby Puckett. He's disappointed. There's no way around that. And there's his fielding stats. Well, while we're here, Dan Gladden, about where he should be. And there's his fielding. I would say that the Twins are overperforming. We'll see how much longer they can hold on. Below them, everybody's kind of jumbled together until you get to California and Texas, and those two teams have fallen so far. I don't see how they could possibly win the division and make the playoffs. Here you see the computer sneak preview of who they think should be all-stars. I'll tell you a little secret. They don't get to choose. I do. So one of the flaws in the game is when they do choose an all-star team, it's almost all starters, and that's not how we'll do things here. Edgar Martinez's numbers, very good. Definitely in consideration at third. There's his fielding. Ken Griffey Jr., big name, huge name, iconic name. But his numbers just, they're below. There's his fielding. This is going to be hard to beat, though. 27 great plays, 0 poor. I think the best part of the Mariners are their pitchers, especially their starters, where Eric Hansen is outperforming his real stats. And of course, the one that gets the most notoriety, Randy Johnson and his fastball, has been playing better than his real life stats. Those are both contenders for the All-Star team. After Seattle, we get to Kansas City, who's currently at 500, 40-40 after 80 games. And they are, even though it's a new decade, they're still led by George Brett, now playing first base. He's hitting .321. I think that man could probably hit 300 now if they gave him a bat and let him practice for a little while. Here's the pitching staff. I don't see anything there. Maybe Kevin Appier, but he's not performing as well as he did in the real season. Jeff Montgomery has pitched excellent in relief, and he has 7 saves. He definitely has an opportunity to be on the team. Here you see the hitters, and they again are led by George Brett. There you see his numbers in his age 37 season. A little bit below what he did in the real season. And there you see his defense at first base. I'd say that's about it. These other guys, in an American League that can hit probably don't have a chance to make the All-Star roster. But interesting to see how they finish the season, though. Chicago White Sox, which I've talked about previously on this channel, have the ability to play their first baseman every single game if they want, Frank Thomas, but for some reason the computer has chosen not to do that. So I think that's contributed to the fact that they're a little bit under 500, a game under. Ron Karkovice has played well for them at catcher. However, he's only played 21 games. I'm guessing that's because Carlton Fisk is still there at age 43, and he's playing pretty well also. We'll see if he makes the All-Star team. Oh, pardon me. Did not show his fielding stats. There you see them. I think that's pretty much the cutoff line there. Would like to show Frank. There's his stats. Still incredibly good. There's his fielding. I think he should play more, but not going to belabor the point. Pitching wise, some people will say Bobby Thigpen should be on the roster, and to them I say, look at his ERA. He's underperformed by a large margin on all of these stats, and he doesn't have nearly as many saves. So again, that's another statistic like wins for a pitcher, saves. I just don't get as excited about. I'm more excited about matchups and finishing the game, not just handing the ball over to somebody in the ninth and saying it's your job to get everybody out. He does a good job of that, but he also gives up runs. And for a reliever, I think it's more important to have a lower ERA. In fact, while we're here, let's look at save opportunities. 85% is good. I've got no problem with that. He's just still giving up too many runs. Okay, to the Angels. Looking at their staff, it's not good. Kirk McCaskill is pretty good. I don't think that ERA is low enough, even though it's below his real numbers. I don't think it's good enough to make the team. That's my opinion. Brian Harvey was on this team, and he only has 4 saves. And the real season, he had 25. Hitting-wise, Dave Winfield has had a great half season, and he should at least be in consideration, well outperforming his real numbers. And there you see how he's done in right field. Beyond that, I don't think anybody's good enough, unfortunately. Maybe in a couple of years, Dante Bichette. The last place team, although they're battling it out with the Angels, is the Texas Rangers, which is unfortunately for such a great pitcher as Nolan Ryan. You see that under strikeouts, he has 147 in the half season. He has an outside chance at 300, which is very rare. Definitely in the time period that I'm recording this. It does not happen very often. It's a great accomplishment if it happens. Hitting-wise, Rafael Palmeiro is definitely in the running at first base. There you see the numbers, excellent. There you see his defense. Harold Baines is too low. Pitching-wise, Nolan Ryan will never make it with a 4 ERA. Unfortunately, that's the bad part of this team. I mean, I don't... Kenny Rogers is pretty good. Yeah. Talk about a team that needs some pitching. That's all I got to say there. All right, that's it for the American League. In the first half season, we'll go to the National League. Bear with me while I wait for everything to populate and then change it to the National League snapshot. Hopefully that won't take too long. There you see the numbers. Pittsburgh currently in first place over the Mets by 3. Montreal by 4.5. Philadelphia has drifted away. I don't know if they can come back this season. Definitely one of the factors in the Phillies dropping down is Lenny Dykstra has hit a cold patch. He started in the last second month recording that we did, and he's hit a lot worse lately. And his batting average is not close to 400. He's now closer to number 2 in the batting average race than he is to 400. So it was nice while it lasted, and he's had an excellent season regardless. But I don't think we'll see any history in the second half of this season. In fact, he's fallen below Dave Magadan. That's news to me, as Magadan now leads the whole National League with a 369 average. You know of my love for Dave Magadan from the beginning of the season. I thought that was the reason Davey Johnson got fired in the real season. And Dykstra now down to 360. There you see some of the other numbers. Let's check out the Pittsburgh Pirates. See why they're so good. And this would be Exhibit A for me. Doug Drabek, who should start the National League, be the starting pitcher for the National League in the All-Star game. There you see his numbers without compare. For a starter, he's not the only one though. Neil Heaton first will get consideration. He's pitched great. Also, Randy Tomlin has been good. They have excellent pitching. On the back end, Bill Landrum, I guess would be called their closer. He's been good even though he's underperformed his real statistics. Then you move to Exhibit B, or the other half of the team, and that's the hitting. And although Don Slott leads in OPS, Barry Bonds has actually played a number of games and has been great. Even better, well, as devastating on offense as he was in the real season in which he won the MVP. There's his defense. It's just as good. Bobby Bonilla also played well. There you see his stats above what he really did. And there you see his defense ability to play on the infield as well, although he hasn't played third in this simulation, just in right. Also, Andy Van Slyke deserves mention. I don't think he's there to get on the All-Star team, but he's played great. And that outfield is just a wonder. Also had some serious contributions from Sid Bream, but not enough to challenge for the team. Excellent job, though. And they will be hard to beat and keep out of the playoffs. I can attest to that, having played them Wow, probably 10 times this season already. They're very difficult. And with Drabek, they're almost impossible to beat. But the team that will try to do it is the Mets. They still have a chance. They're within striking range, thanks to hitters like Dave Magadan. There you see his numbers much even better than what he showed in the regular season, especially against right-handers. In 222 plate appearances, he has a OPS of 1.049. Incredible. There's his fielding. He makes up half of the Mets' first baseman. The other half is pretty snazzy himself. Mike Marshall against lefties. In 83 at-bats, a 1.025 OPS. And there's his fielding. Those two guys get on base, and this guy drives them in. Darryl Strawberry, above, and equal in OPS to his real-life stats. We'll see if he can keep that up, especially against right-handers. Wow. And there you see his. Definitely a consideration for the All-Star team. Greg Jeffries, because he plays second base, could perhaps make it, playing above. And there you see his fielding, playing second and third. Pitching-wise, I don't think it's been as good as I believed it used to be. Frank Viola, yes. Frank Viola should make the All-Star team with that ERA. But I looked at the group as a whole, and other than David Cone, nobody else has an ERA below 3, and he's barely there. He did have a bad start, so I understand that. But Dwight Gooden, 355. Sid Fernandez, 389. Ron Darling, 455. And the bullpen is just, other than Whitehurst, just, a mess. So I would say that would probably be the lack of John Franco. Being John Franco, part of the reason why they're not in first place. Although they have a chance to make that up in the second half of the season. Next up are the Expos. This is a team that seems like it's in transition. They have really good players that are at the end, like Dennis Martinez, and they have really good young players like Larry Walker. But each player is not playing at their optimum. At least not yet, or it's just passed them by. Even as good as Dennis is, I don't think he makes the All-Star team, although he's pitched great. Oil Can Boyd has also pitched great, but I fear that his ERA is just a little too high to make the team. Beyond that, their closer, Tim Burke, is very good. And Steve Frey is good as well. Hitting-wise, Tim Wallach should be the starter at third base. There you see his numbers. There you see his defense. Beyond that, Tim Raines, just not enough in the outfield. Larry Walker, we talked about, is not where Larry Walker is as a Hall of Famer yet. Up next is Philadelphia. The Phillies, again, have Lenny Dykstra, John Kruk, and Darren Daulton as the main parts of their offense. They ran really well at the beginning of the season, and they're still right around 5 runs a game, but I don't think they have the pitching to sustain for the rest of the season. The Regardless, Lenny Dykstra. An excellent season. There you see his fielding numbers. Ricky Jordan is definitely a consideration. However, he just doesn't play enough games. He's probably, yeah, he's great against lefties, but against righties, and that's part of the problem. They're splitting the time with Kruk, I guess. Von Hayes and John Kruk have been out. There you see their numbers. That's not good enough. Jordan had more at bats, probably a shoe-in. Darren Daulton definitely has an opportunity to make the team above his real numbers, fielding wise. Charlie Hayes, outside chance because he does play third base. There you see those numbers hitting over 310, although that's not really going to matter when I select players. Wanted to show the fielding. There you go. Chicago Cubs had a run there where they were actually in first place for a short time. They've had it a little bit tougher lately. They're still led by two great players in Andre Dawson and Ryan Sandberg. Dawson still hitting 326, playing great, should make the All-Star team. Currently, according to this, he's the MVP. We'll see about that at the end of the season. Leads the team in OPS. There you see these gigantic numbers, but hits that as well on both sides of the plate, pretty much. Impressive hitter. And there you see his numbers in the field at age 36. Still one of the best. Mark Grace has a chance at first base, although it's going to be close. There's his numbers and his fielding. Ryan Sandberg, we've already talked about. Probably the leader on this team, if not the leader, one of. There's his fielding. And that's about it. A big letdown for me, this guy did make the All-Star team, Sean Dunston. His numbers, look at those. I mean, if he was doing his normal numbers, he probably would make the team. And there you see his fielding. Pitching-wise, Greg Maddux is the ace. Not surprising. Even better than his numbers in real life. Unfortunately, the Harkey is pretty good, but he has not gotten the... Let's see, is his run support not good? 4. He's got a 3-8 record. Maybe he just got bad luck. Numbers are not that bad. Steve Wilson's pitched well. Well under his normal ERA. And then we go to the Cardinals, who are a team that have a couple great players. John Tudor, Willie McGee. I think Vince Coleman is still a great player. But as a team, they just can't put all the pieces together. Ozzie Smith's not playing every day. Willie McGee's not playing every day. Ray Lankford's not playing every day. Even Vince Coleman doesn't play every single game. And the computer has managed them into a big hole that I don't think they could climb out of. Looking at the pitchers, John Tudor stands out. His run support's 3.27, and yet he has a winning record on a team that has probably the most losses in the National League. Just excellent at age 36. Who says old players aren't good? And that's about it. I guess Todd Zeile could probably qualify at catcher. However, he's not played enough. I'd like to see over 50 games. Willie McGee has played over 50 games, but he has not performed. His average is decently close, but almost zero slug. 8 doubles versus 35 in the real season, 1 triple versus 7. There you see his fielding. And that's it. Everybody else here is below average. Ray Langford, but he splits time. That takes you through the National League East. Up next, the National League West. And we'll go in inverse order. We'll start with the Braves, who are a team on the rise, even though they're in last place. They have 2 of the best young outfielders I've seen, and they have played like it. David Justice and Ron Gant are definite considerations. One of the things when we pick this team, we're not looking at what the team's record is. We're looking at individual players. David Justice, who's played first base and the outfield, has played great, even though he's been injured for a short time. Look at that slug. Well, the average is not above what really happened, but it might go up. Look at this OPS against lefties. Playing great. There's his fielding stats. Definitely a consideration for the All-Star team. Also, Ron Gant, who looks like he's played just about every game. A little bit below, but still excellent. And stuck playing center field, which is hard at age 25. Going down the list, Jeff Treadway has a chance to make the team, especially since he plays in the middle infield. Plays second base. Down the list, Jeff Blauser also, even though his numbers are not up to what they should be, he has a definite chance of making the All-Star team because of the position that he plays. Pitching-wise, this is where the team's going to have to improve in future seasons. They're not there yet. That's the Achilles heel of this team and why they're in last place. San Diego up next with only 1 more win than Atlanta. They have some nice players on their team. They have a couple great pitchers on their team. But they definitely cannot put it together, just like the real life team. Just not performing for whatever reason. Ed Whitson has surpassed Bruce Hurst barely. That's probably the best pitcher, the ace. There you see his numbers. Definite consideration. As is Bruce Hurst. Former Red Sox. Has pitched well, above his regular numbers. He does have a 1-hitter, as noted. And then Andy Benes is okay. Greg Harris is okay with this ERA. Craig Lefferts probably should be replaced as the stopper. Greg Harris should maybe consider closing. I mean, I don't manage this team, just making observations. Batting wise, Jack Clark with a 979 OPS. However, only 51 games. He's right around the cutoff. I don't know that he's been injured either. I think he's just not been able to play. Definitely in consideration. The thing that worries me right here is the number of at-bats even. I think you should have at least 200 at-bats by now. There's his fielding at first base. He split time with Jared Clark earlier in the season. Mark Parent, 17 games, that's not enough. Bip Roberts has a chance in left field. 28 stolen bases. There's his fielding. Benito Santiago has a chance. 820 OPS. There's his fielding. Tony Gwynn, I think, is just going to miss it. I think that OPS is just too low, although his batting average is above where it was in the real season. Definitely would have made it because of his name, but I'm not going to look at that. I'm looking at numbers, and that's it. So you see all these numbers that are decent. You got a couple good starting pitchers. It's just a little bit here and a little bit there that don't work out, and you're 35 and 44. But they're not the disappointment of the league. And for me, there's only one team that is that big of a disappointment, and it's coming up next. It's the 39 and 40 Cincinnati Reds. This is the team that won the World Series in 1990. This is the team that won the National League West in 1990 and beat the Dodgers by 5 games. And they are currently 8 games out of first place at the All-Star break. Well, within a game of the All-Star break. And I'm going to say it's mainly because of the hitting. Hal Morris, he has a chance at the All-Star team. He's played well, but still below his real season. Not by a lot. There's his fielding numbers. Paul O'Neill has not played enough. Todd Benzinger has not played enough. These guys all share time, it seems like. Winningham's been hurt. He's played enough. I don't know that he's got a high enough OPS to make it, though. 794, it's going to be close. There's his fielding. He's played enough. I know he was injured recently. Quinones has not played enough. Look at Barry Larkin. That's well below, a whole point below. Even though his fielding is good. Chris Sabo. Greatly underperforming. Look at that. Look at these numbers. They're just... Look at his defense. This is why the team's not good. A lot of the time this season we've seen Mariano Duncan listed as a second base all-star. How? Look at these numbers. He's great against left-handers, but he's putrid poor against right. There's his fielding. There's no way I could pick him. No way. Impossible. The ace of their staff is somebody who I could choose. That's Jose Rijo, although he's had a struggle recently. Game logs. The ERA is bumped up next to 3 now. Gave up 7 earned runs. That is not how you get yourself on the All-Star team in 1 2/3 innings. Excuse me. Excuse me again. This start right here might have knocked him off the All-Star roster. The real starter of the 1990 All-Star team was Jack Armstrong. And he has not pitched like an All-Star. He will not be making the team. A lot of disappointment here pitching-wise also. This team has not done much well. One person who has, and has a chance at the All-Star team, is Randy Myers. Pitched really well. 10 saves. One of the nasty boys has been good, and one has been naughty. And that's Rob Dibble. Look at that ERA. Look at the whip. I mean, it's like a totally different person. Norm Charlton has been used as a part-time starter. That can explain part of the reason for his poor numbers, but wow, just all over. A disappointment is about the only way you can say it. And that should say, hey, they could improve. The cream comes back up to the level. They're going to improve. They got to get up close. I don't know that. Perhaps they can improve. I mean, they're still only one game below 500 after all those terrible stats I showed you. But maybe not. The way that I read the manual in this game is they're not trying to get you back to the same level. You get to each encounter from here on out is going to be on its own, individual. Not a point of trying to catch up. One team who I feel like has overperformed are the Houston Astros. I didn't expect them to be in this spot. Even though they're in third place, they're very close. And their leader, I don't see him here. Oh, there he is, Danny Darwin. Pitched great. Pitched as a starter and in relief. In fact, he's only started 12 games. Has he pitched better in relief? Oh, yeah. So, he's been used wherever they need him. He has 2 saves. His record's not impressive, but his ERA definitely is. So I guess he's considered a relief pitcher now? Whips below 1. He's a good pitcher wherever you play him. Yeah, though he still started here, it looks like recently he has been knocked out of the rotation. I don't understand that. Their other starters are decent, not great. Jim Clancy has started a few games. Larry Anderson has pitched well. This was the year that they traded him to the Boston Red Sox. Let's see, for Bagwell, Jeff Bagwell. That trade will not occur. So they get to keep Larry Anderson the rest of the season and try to win the division, which they're within earshot of. Those are just excellent numbers. Definitely consideration. Dave Smith, though, is the stopper on this team. Whip's a little high, surprisingly. His ERA is right on the mark. And he has 17 saves. So unlike in the American League, the White Sox closer, Dave Smith not only has the number of saves, but he also has the ERA to back it up that he's one of the best. The problem for the Astros, from my outside viewing, is the hitting. Bill Doran, who's a far better second baseman than Mariano Duncan, not just for the fact that he's got an OPS of 915, can also field better than Duncan. So I think he was kind of forgotten man. He shouldn't be. He definitely will be on the All-Star team. It'll probably be Sandberg and Bill Doran. Glenn Davis is a great hitter, but he has been injured and not He's probably not going to make the All-Star team. But look at what his numbers are in comparison to real life. Yeah, his durability is 5. He missed a lot of games during the in the real season. And he's still not playing up to par. There's his fielding. And that's probably it. Casey Candel's not going to beat out Bill Doran. I mean, I know Casey plays all over the place, but probably not going to make it. And the rest of these people are not. There's a lot of people that are hitting below 700 OPS. Look at these guys. Shout out to probably, in my opinion, the worst shortstop that starts every single day is Rafael Ramirez, who I remember him as a Brave with Atlanta. He's terrible. He's hitting below. Here we go. This is my favorite part. He has 19 errors. That's probably more than Jose Vizcaíno. When we get there, we're going to look and see if he has 19. I know he has 24 great plays, but man, maybe it's just when he plays against the Dodgers. I don't know. They're definitely only 4.5 back of the Dodgers. They definitely have a shot. 2 teams left. The Giants are next. The rivals of the Dodgers, they lead the National League in batting at .265. They have Kevin Mitchell, who is tied for the most home runs in the league. And he also hits .310. For a short while, he was the MVP leader, according to the snapshot board. Kevin Mitchell's been the straw that stirs the drink, to borrow a phrase. There you see his numbers. They're a little bit above where they were in real life. We'll see if that means he's going to go down a little bit. We won't know. There you see him on defense. That doesn't even matter. And you're that good offensively. Dave Anderson's played well. I don't think he's played enough. Otherwise, he probably would play in the All-Star game. Look at this average, 391. I'd still like to see him above 50, and that's not going to happen. Mike Kingery has played great for them, but I don't know that it's enough to get on the All-Star team. There you see his number, especially against the lefties. He's been excellent. Brett Butler, a little bit of a disappointment to me personally. I remember him as a Dodger in the 90s. These are pretty consistent numbers. So maybe he just hadn't hit his prime at 33. I don't know. Part of the problem with having only singles hitters, the OPS is affected. I guess he's close. When you have people like Ron Gant, you're not going to catch him. Really disappointed with Matt Williams. Look at these numbers. I mean, his OPS is 150 points lower than what it should be. Does that mean he's going to hit like on fire in the second half? I don't know. Hit decently against left-handers, but right-handers, oh, not good. Robbie Thompson, I also remember many nightmares about him playing. He's about consistent. I mean, it's not a huge difference. Not as big of a disappointment like Matt Williams. Here we go with the pitching staff. This is about what I expected for the Giants. These high ERAs for starters. Jeff Brantley's been excellent as their closer, even outperforming what he did in the regular season. He should make the All-Star team. Mark Thurman's been their lefty out of the pen. He's pitched well. Really good. Look at that whip. .793 in 40 innings. 40 and a third. Excellent job by him. There's somebody I missed because he's injured right now. Will Clark. Let's see his numbers in comparison. He's about right on track. He won't be gone long. He's injured, but not for any long stretch of time. The 15th, for another week. Again, we have the All-Star break. So, okay, to the Dodgers. Hanging on to first place by 2 games. Had a 13-game winning streak. Had a 5-game losing streak. So the odds of having a 13-game winning streak in the second half are about as good as having a 13-game losing streak. Maybe no 5-game losing streaks in there too might balance out whatever lower winning streak the Dodgers have in the second half. I still feel like we're kind of doing this with mirrors, especially since lately we've hit the injury bug really bad. We've got 3 outfielders injured at the same time, although Stan Javier should be back right after the All-Star break. Let's look at these guys first before they disappear. Underperforming for him, even against right-handers. There's his defensive numbers. Gwynn, who's played better lately, right before he got hurt, still underperforming. Again, does that mean he's going to hit better? I can't bet on that. Kirk Gibson, who's played great, is still just barely ahead of his real-life numbers. And with his durability of 5 and being injured again a second time, can I depend on him? And there you see his defense in center field's been better than I expected. Alright, those guys go disappear. And let's talk about the real players. Let's start with the real starters that are not injured. Eddie Murray, there are his numbers. Dead on. I mean, a little bit above. Kind of surprised he only has 11 home runs. That's about all I can complain about. There's his fielding. He started out a house of fire. He's calmed down. He's not as good, but he's definitely the best hitter on this team. Right behind him is Cal Daniels, who's really cooled off. 240 in June, 167 in July. Still, though, kind of underperforming, but that's kind of what you get from Cal. His fielding is better than expected, even with 9 poor plays. Mike Scioscia has probably been the second most unexpected bright spot. Has really outperformed his numbers. His OPS almost 100 better than real life. There you see, his defense has been good as well. Would like to see the throwing out a little bit better. Mike Sharperson has been right about where I thought, and his versatility, even though it's not great defense, has helped with the injuries on the infield that we had in the beginning part of the season. Lenny Harris, hitting right about where I expected. I expect this team to hit up and down the lineup. Fielding, not so much. Hubie Brooks has not played as much as he normally would, but has played well lately, including injecting some power into the team. 389 in July with 3 home runs that were definitely needed to get wins. But by far, when I started this project, the guy who I depended a lot on was this guy, Jose Vizcaino, and he has exceeded anything that I could have possibly thought. I wanted to play him more, and I have, and he's responded. His average is 25 points higher, his on base is higher, his slug is higher, his OPS is higher. Everything is really good. This 693 might look like, it's okay, but for a starting shortstop, it's great. There you see his number. I mean, This is an OPS plus above 100, which is average. Now, his fielding's not great. That's fine with me. I don't care. This was the key to the whole project was could Jose Vizcaino or Mike Sharperson, who's who we started at shortstop, fill in well enough to make people forget about Alfredo Griffin. He's not going to be as good defensively, but Alfredo was such a hole on offense that needed to be filled for this team to score more runs to win games. Just take a second here and look at Alfredo's. Well, he was right there and he disappeared. Stats in the real season. A 512 OPS. A 210 batting average. Yeah, his fielding was good. Not that good, but it was good. 26 errors. It's not great to me. Let's see how many errors. So we're going to check and see how many errors Jose has. It's 13. So, I mean, if he finishes the season at 26 errors, which is about where Alfredo was, I know that's not the only measurement of defense. That's good enough. And especially if he continues to hit even the real numbers. I mean, that's great. That's so many more runs that can win games. Okay, off the soapbox. Juan Samuel has disappointed. Just looking for a way to keep him on the bench. I can't find it because of the injuries. He keeps sneaking into the lineup. Jose Gonzalez is somebody who probably should get in the lineup more. He just doesn't have enough hitting to field a starting spot for a whole season. His defense is great, though. Love him in center field. Rick Dempsey's playing out the string. He's had a few hits. Nothing really expected out of him. Defense has been great. And Mickey Hatcher's just on the team because of injury. Jeff Hamilton is also... Let's try that again. Jeff Hamilton has also had a brief cup of coffee due to injury. He's had a couple nice plays. Mainly there for defense, which has been pretty solid when he does play. Pitching-wise, Ramon Martinez has turned back into the ace that I've expected him to be. I wonder if he'll get 36 starts. We'll see what the game does. If that really occurs. In the game logs, you can see when it repopulates how well he's pitched lately. He had a tough May of 4.73 ERA. These are great numbers. He had a bad day here, bad day here, bad day here. Bad start the first game of the season. So he's really had, 4 or 5 bad starts. But lately he's pitched great. He's up to 66.7% quality starts. He was around 50 not too long ago. So that shows you what he's done. Mike Morgan has been a disappointment. And I didn't expect that much, but he's not pitched well. Would love to have somebody to replace him, but I don't. Tim Belcher's pitched well lately. Pitches really well at home. There's his numbers. He's above a 3.22 ERA versus a 4 is pretty good. We'll see how much of that continues. Mike Hartley's been the gem that I thought he could be. Wanted to pitch him more innings. He's almost at 100. He's pitched well both ways, home as a starter and in relief. I think he adds a little bit more to the team as a reliever, so because it allows us to start pitchers like Oral Hershiser and Fernando Valenzuela, at least for part of the game, and then he comes in and tries to clean up and finish up. Just want to show Fernando's batting. Those are good numbers, folks, especially against right-handers, but overall, Would like to get him more at bats. He's only had 26. Oral has I don't know how much longer Oral will be here because the durability is one, and also because he's just not pitched that well. But it's either him or Neidlinger, and Neidlinger hasn't pitched well also. I'll show you him for a second. I mean, it's like 25% chance of a quality start. Maybe, maybe not. Ray Searage has not given up a run. He's great out of the bullpen, not just versus lefties. He can shut down the game, too. Probably deserves some more credit than that. We still don't know about Mike Munoz. Jay Howell is disappointed. I know his numbers are not that terrible, but I cannot trust him to finish games. Only 4 out of 6 in save opportunities. Inherited runs, 26.7. Okay, let's see that versus Searage. It's higher than Ray Searage. Another disappointment in this bullpen has been Tim Cruz. Just I thought way more of him. He just hasn't done it. Inherited runners over 23%. Darren Holmes has been great. Surprise. But he's well outperforming. We've been using him great. He's only pitched 9 innings, and he's only really going to pitch against right-handers, barring a blowout. 0% on the inherited runners scoring. Dave Walsh, really good against lefties. Doesn't look great against righties. But that might only be the part that he needs to do. So, bullpen's still very shaky. Jim Gott, excellent numbers. 0 confidence, though. I just against right-handers, inherited runners, 15.8. John Wetland, better than expected. Still, I can't count on him not to walk people. He has 18 walks in the real season. He only had 17, and he's not up to the innings pitched yet. So, inherited runners, 12.5. Just don't feel great about. Oh, sorry, John wants me to show you his 1 home run. There it is, just like the real season. Don't expect that to happen again. Let's see if there's anybody else who's had some significant work. I don't see anybody. Jim Poole, no. I showed Neidlinger, so that's it. That's where we're at halfway through the season. We're going to play the rest of these games for July 8th. And then we're going to set up and show you the All-Star teams and play that game. Thanks for watching. Appreciate all your time and effort in viewing this. We'll see you next time on Missed It by How Much.